This enemy has taken our home, and now they threaten our very existence. But if we attack together, we can take back our home, or we die trying.
Turning players into payers.
It didn't take long for the player base to figure it out. The reviews early on were actually pretty positive. Destiny 2 finally had a coherent story campaign. It wasn't good by any means, but it was leagues better than the first installment. I remember leveling my first character and wondering why it didn't feel the same. Weapons looked and sounded great, but they didn't feel punchy enough. My super seems to take ages to charge. Talent progression was simply just removed, offering you instead 2 uncustomizable paths to choose from. Gone were the days where you could pick and choose every facet of your build. Even weapon progression was gone. In Destiny 1, if you found a gun you really liked, you had to level that gun up in a way in order to upgrade it. You had to unlock perks with experience. When you finally maxed the gun out, it was a great feeling. The same is true for the subclasses. All of your talents and abilities were locked behind experience. It made getting all the talent options feel like an achievement. The most shocking thing for almost all of us was seeing that entire systems and features were missing from the sequel that were present in its predecessor. Bungie gave no reasons. Bungie made no comment. Progression was weak. Exotics were thrown at you as quest rewards during the campaign. PvP was missing all the depth from the first game. Changes were made to how rewards were dropped and earned, changes that took memorable moments away from us. Strikes didn't have loot drops anymore. There was no real chase. It all boiled down to dismantling tons of garbage that we'd get and turning them in for usually more garbage, earning tokens, getting experience so that we can get our next bright engram and see if we got anything cool this time. Everything was simpler and easier and dumbed down, and we didn't like it. The first expansion came out, and I can't seem to find a single person that loves it. It's just a little more Destiny 2. In fact, I don't think anyone would have spent money on it had they known exactly what they were getting out of it. And that sentiment might even carry over to Destiny 2 as a whole, which is just disappointing.
I'm sure most of you know what Eververse is in Destiny 2, but on the off chance you don't know what it is, well, it's basically Bungie's and Activision's form of microtransactions and loot crates. Whenever you level up, you earn bright engrams from Eververse, where you then can be given random loot out of an ever-growing pile of rewards. Now, when I first started playing Destiny 2, I never imagined that this whole ordeal would blow up like it has. Recently, it's been the most trending news topic for Destiny, as well as one of the most trending topics in gaming. This is in large part due to several XP scandals that Bungie tried to implement behind players' backs, as well as the anger and uproar over how a lot of the cool and unique loot from the Curse of Osiris DLC, as well as the Dawning event, are mostly Eververse items, if not based on Eververse entirely. So it's easy to see why fans and players are so frustrated with the game, and why many are now demanding that Eververse get taken out of the game entirely. The only reason I don't think Eververse has reached Battlefront 2's levels of uproar is because Battlefront 2's loot boxes ruined the core feedback loop of the game by implementing the progression and power system with randomized drops, while in Destiny 2 all the items are cosmetic based. But Eververse is beginning to have as many items as the rest of the game's normal loot pool, meaning it's less fun to get drops and there's less loot to acquire from those drops. To me, and I'm sure many others out there, even though this stuff is cosmetic, it has an impact on how it feels to play Destiny 2, and not for the better.
Bungie decided to put everything that you can earn basically behind a paywall. Yeah, you can earn some of this stuff for free by grinding your ass off, but other than that, you pretty much have to open up your wallet and say, here you go, Bungie, take my money so I can get my shaders that are gonna never be able to be used again because shaders aren't fucking permanent like they used to be. No, they're just like little tile cards now. It's stupid. And this is just after the start of Battlefront 2 controversy, which hit the news with its manipulative scam artist ways. But no, Bungie can do it, and they just get a pat on the back. No news coverage, no nothing. And in fact, I think this is such a really bad system. I think it's worse than Star Wars Battlefront 2's system, because at least you could relatively earn those items for free. Here, you really can't.
Destiny 2 is not the game we all wanted and expected. Bungie attempted to make Destiny 2 more accessible to a much broader range of consumers, by making the game more simple and more dumbed down on pretty much every level. The problem is that by making the game more open to everyone, they kept no one. I understand that for publishers and developers alike, attracting mass hordes of casuals and new players at the game's launch is very appealing for both commercial and development reasons. But you need to make sure that when attracting a new audience, you don't alienate and push away the old audience that stuck with you through the years. If you spend 3 years building a sizable and loyal audience that will stick with the game in the long run, is it really worth it to have a massive audience for only a week or two that leaves for good afterwards and has no interest in buying DLC?
Microtransactions and loot boxes have seemingly invaded almost every major publisher's AAA titles, and I can't help but feel like Destiny 2 was just a monetization experiment. They wanted to know what they could get away with, how they could switch things up without us noticing. We didn't need a sequel. We didn't need the Eververse. You asked us to pay full price for a game that begs us to shell out more money into slot machines just so we can have a chance at getting some of the cooler items in the game. It's just cosmetic. Actually, it isn't just cosmetic, but still, let's pretend it is. The coolest looking stuff in the game is literally locked behind microtransactions. Shaders are consumable now. And we don't even have enough inventory to collect one of each shader in the game. All the sparrows and ghost shells are locked behind loot boxes. XP boosts are locked behind loot boxes. And why do we even want XP boosts? To get more loot boxes. The entire endgame is designed around selling us loot boxes, but why? We paid the price of admission. We are even willing to pay for your DLC, which honestly deserves its own video. How can you honestly say that locking half of the items in your DLC, or even all of the items from this event, The Dawning, behind microtransactions? In a game we already paid for, in full. In an overpriced DLC we already paid for in full. How do you justify the cash shop at all? You're pushing the game as a service model, and the really shitty thing about it is you're pretending that isn't what you're doing. You're being dishonest about features and XP throttling and methods that you've purposefully employed for the sole reason to make us buy your stupid loot boxes, and that is unacceptable. If you were a free-to-play game, maybe then it wouldn't feel like this. If the DLC was free, which honestly at this caliber it definitely should have been, then maybe I could understand needing the supplemental income. But you gouged us once for a full-price base game missing almost every single feature that we wanted from the first one. You gouged us with the sad excuse for an expansion. And you have the gall, no pun intended, to treat us like we're buying extra lives in Candy Crush Saga? No, Bungie. No, Activision. We paid for this game. The transaction is over. Get your greedy paws off my wallet and put them back to work fixing your game.